Well, technically it's still good morning for 5 more minutes, but because we have such an amazing speaker, we're going to speed through this and get going before noon. So, and besides, he's a politician, and you know, they talk forever. Having said that, I am one, so I can complain, or I was one. So welcome very much. Appreciate you very much for being here. Hi, Bob. I'm Lynn Snodgrass, the CEO of the best doggone chamber in the Pacific Northwest. It continues to be the best chamber in the Pacific Northwest, and in part, or maybe all, is because of you, your members, your participation, who you are, and the businesses that you represent. So thank you all for being here today. I'm really sorry, though, that we've had the wind and the rain, because I love coming to Persimmon. When you come up that boulevard and there's those red trees, I wait all year. Now I got to wait another whole year again to do that. So, and I also want to apologize. The table decorations, while they're beautiful, the pumpkins I bought and the gourds are in a bag in my office. They were supposed to be here. I don't know what I'm going to do with all those pumpkins and gourds. Maybe I'll save them for next month. We'll do that. So I want to thank our presenting sponsors today. Columbia Bank. Robin couldn't be here. Banking is tough right now and shorthanded, but she loves being a sponsor of this. The Boeing Company, again, a newer sponsor of our Business and Leaders Luncheon, and Portland General Electric. The Portland General Electric representative is on a panel in downtown Portland at City Club today, and so he flipped a coin. We lost. He's there, so thank you very much. And I also want to thank our stakeholder sponsor, which is Gresham Barlow School District. And James, I'm so glad that you're here. James, the acting superintendent, James Hugh, is here with us today. Thank you very much. And Jordan, don't worry, I'll introduce you in just a minute. Okay. And I want to also thank MetroEast Community Media for their media sponsorship. Keith does a great job, and it's being recorded today, and it can be retelevised. These are outside on the registration table, so you can get one and replay it, because there's going to be a lot of important information, and we want to hold our mayor accountable for what he's going to say to us today, don't you think? So you could replay it and share it with your friends and neighbors. All right. I've got several people that I would like to point out today. Vicki Moen, who is our new director of the Work Ready program, has joined us today. Vicki, can you just wave your hand? She is responsible for the Work Ready. She's reaching out to you. It's a partnership between us and 3 school districts and Mount Hood Community College and the MESD. So, and Aaron, can you peek your head in? Is Angela out there too? Where's Angela? She's coming, so is Christmas. So I used to say that to my kids all the time. I'm coming. Angela and Aaron, staff. Aaron is a newer member of our staff. Not new to you, but a newer member to your staff. Thank you both very much for all the setup today. And I would like to acknowledge the elected officials that are in the room today. Mayor Stovall is going to be up here on the stage, but Mayor Stovall is here. And just to his left is a council member, Mario Palmero. Thank you very much for being here today. Good applause. Thank you for the applause. And many of my bosses are here today holding me accountable. Warner Allen of Warren Allen LLC. He is also the chairman of government affairs. That is who is responsible for the agenda today. Warner, thank you for your work and your board membership. Kayla Viramontes, the bold orange. There's Kayla. Thank you. Kathy Weiss of My Father's House. Back in the back, you can wave. Thank you, Kathy. Jordan Ely. There you go. Right, not Eli, Ely, okay. Jordan is one of our newer board members, and he represents Gresham Barlow School District on our board. Thank you. From Clackamas County Bank, Brian York. There's Brian next to Kathy. Hi, Brian, thank you, and thanks for inviting me to Rotary. A lot of our board members are multiple involved in other nonprofits in the district. Steve Brown, okay, Steve Brown, the guy who buys print, paper by the barrels, by the truckload. Steve Brown is a board member too, and he's on the executive committee. Thank you very much. Could you please give our board members a round of applause too? That's great. They are responsible for how successful our programs are. Well, we do have a great program today. Mayor, you want to start tiptoeing all the way up here? You cannot come up here. You have to go up the stairs. Travis Stovall, I've known Travis for a while, not long enough to have some stories that I could tell. But I know him from a business perspective. He's a business owner, and the Leadership Academy has used his services every year that we've had the Leadership Academy. So I'm so grateful to have him. But now he is an elected official, and that is a different light, different kinds of ways of doing things, much slower than when you own your own business. I would tell you that. So along with his leadership, he grew patience. And that's not something that us business people have just by nature. We're not patient. But Travis, the mayor, has a newfound character trait, patience, right? Or maybe not. We'll soon see. So without further ado, we want to get started today. And the way this is going to work is that Travis and I are going to have a conversation. I've got several questions, but you're going to get to ask questions later, too. And I said, you want 3 or 4? How many? He says dozens and dozens. We don't have all afternoon. We've got a time limit. So we're going to get started. So, Mayor, your microphone is set. So we're going to start with a softball. Who are you? What did you do? How did you grow up? Where, you've got 30 seconds. No, you could.
30 seconds.
It was a joke.
Well, good afternoon. I think it's afternoon now. I think
yes, it is.
Yes, you've effectively spoken until it's afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. I was wondering if you guys were even awake. So, you know how sometimes when you get the opportunity to go to an event and they claim that somebody famous is going to be there. There's nobody famous here right now. But they claim that somebody famous is going to be there. And when you get there, the person's there only by like video or voice call, or even worse, it's a cutout image of the individual. I did not want that to happen because the Chamber is such an incredible organization. So I actually checked out the image that they used on the website to say I was going to be speaking. And if you go to that image, you will notice that I'm wearing the exact same outfit. Shirt, tie, suit, everything. You can't see my shoes in the photo, but I'm wearing the same exact shoes because I wanted you to have the most authentic experience with me today as we could possibly have. So with that, born and raised Kansan. Yes, Kansas is an incredible state to be from. Actually, Lynn Lastbrook here, we grew up. Him a little, we grew up. That's a huge assumption. Actually, Lynn and I, he grew up about 6 or 7 blocks from where I grew up. And we both went to high school, not together, because the person's in the back of the room's like, what? He looks a little older than you. We didn't go to high school together, but we both did go to high school. But I grew up in Kansas, moved here to Oregon in 2000. I'll just go ahead and clear it up for you. You may ask me, what brought you to Oregon? Sleepless in Seattle. Seriously, the movie Sleepless in Seattle. I had never seen a floating house. It's not a houseboat. It's not a floating boathouse or whatever. It's a floating house that's stick built. Never seen anything like it. It was in the movie. It was Tom Hanks' character's house. And so I had to go to Seattle to check this place out. And when I went there, never found Meg Ryan, by the way, but fell in love with the Northwest. And before I got here, I actually did go to, I also saw the movie Free Willy. You did not know that those were the most famous actual calling cards for the Pacific Northwest, but that's why I'm here, was because of those 2 movies. And now I live in a floating house. Yes, it is in the city of Gresham, folks. We have 5 floating home communities in the city of Gresham right there on Marine Drive. So with that, I used to work for Adventist Health back in the day, and now I run a company called eRep. Thoroughly enjoy that, but really my passion is to ensure that we've got the opportunity as a community to grow and prosper. And that's what drove me to pursue the opportunity to run for mayor last year. And, briefly, right in the heart of what was going on from the social unrest and the social injustice, people would ask me, when George Floyd was killed, they would ask me, Travis, what can we do? And I said, you know what? There are 3 things. The first thing, educate yourself. I'm not going to try and convince you that systemic and systematic racism exists. I have a perspective on that, and I believe it does, sadly enough. I said, so educate yourself. There's tons of opportunity to understand some of the challenges that we face as a country historically. The Color of Law is a great book, Richard Rothstein. that just talks about the actual and factual historical experience of what we had specifically in the space of real estate. So I said, educate yourself. I'm more than willing to share with you my lived experience. So if any of you ever want to sit down, grab coffee, and hear my lived experience, I'm happy to share that with you. Just not the whole concept of what's actual and factual and what can be found out in our communities, libraries, wherever you find your information. The second thing was to elevate the voices of those who have been disadvantaged. Elevate those voices. And lastly, use your powerful majority voice to ensure that you begin to abolish the concept of discrimination in every way, shape, or form. Gender, race, any of those. If you see it, if you witness it, let's lend your powerful voice. Well, in the midst of all of that, our former mayor, Shane Bemis, in his resignation letter said, I think Travis Stovall is the person to help lead us to a more just future. Yeah, he didn't tell me he was going to do that, by the way. People asked, did he tell? No, he didn't tell me, rightly so. I knew he was up to. But I'll finish with this. The moment he did that, what did he do? He elevated a person who had felt like they lived a life of disadvantage. He elevated that voice. He did number two. And it wasn't in the cards for me to say, you know what, folks, I'm just going to take a rain check, see you in 5 to 7 years. No, it was my time to step up and lend into this incredible city, the situation that we were in, to be able to move to a more just future, as he has referenced. That was probably way longer than what you were wanting, Lynn, but that's just a little bit of a background into who I am. Was that like 30 minutes instead of 30 seconds?
Okay, so I'm now going to be a timekeeper. You get 30 seconds, answer. No, I'm teasing. But it put in perspective who he is. What he didn't also, he talked about his business. He talked about who he is as a man of color. But it's incredible that we have this kind of leadership in our city that we can rely on. But leadership is based on how it works, how your system works. Each one of our businesses has a different business model for it to work, and Gresham has a business model. So quickly, we're going to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of how our city works. So we are a city manager form of government. You recently hired a new city manager, and prior to that hire, there were several internal staffing changes, titles, responsibility changes in preparation for that. So the organizational chart has changed, even from the one that we knew. If you knew that we had a city manager form of government, if you knew that, that's not there now. There is something different. So could you bring us all up to date on what that, the city manager, the assistant manager, you don't need to name names, but could you kind of give us a really brief picture of what that organizational chart looks like?
Yeah, of course, and I'll keep it brief. I'll start by saying 77 years ago, our forefathers. No, it's a city manager form of government, and many times referred to specifically in our situation, a council manager form of government. That means our council actually sets policy, gives overviews and oversights of the city, and we hire two people. As a council, we hire the city manager and actually the city attorney. Those both report directly to the city council. Everybody else is hired by the city council, by the city manager, or in the case of the city's attorney's office, by the city attorney, and those folks lead the city on a day-to-day basis. And again, if I were to reference something that is probably more familiar, it's the council and the mayor is kind of like a board of directors for organizations, both for-profit, nonprofit. So we set that policy. Don't actually, we're actually, I wouldn't say forbidden, but in our charter, it disallows us from actively trying to manage any operations of the city. That's all handled by the city manager, which we would consider, again, in business parlance, we would consider them to be the CEO of the city and managing all day-to-day operations. And with that, Lynn referenced some of the changes. When I first got into office beginning of this year, and of course, Councilor Palmero we consider him the veteran statesman on the city council. He's been a city councilor and leader the longest out of any of us. But ultimately, it was quickly realized once we saw some transition that we had quite a few people directly reporting to the city manager. And at that point, the interim city manager said, well, we've got to, in business and leadership and all of those practices, we need to make sure that we can have we can have leaders. If you go back to Good to Great and Jim Collins, he talks about having self-managed leaders within organizations. And so it was that move that actually moved us to move the interim city manager to designate 3 assistant city managers. So we've got 3 assistant city managers now in conjunction with the deputy city manager. Deputy city manager is Corey Falls, and he manages primarily our police and fire and some other resources, specifically our covert response. And then we've got the 3 assistant city managers. Elizabeth Coffey, she manages communications, finance, IT. Then you've got Eric Schmidt, Assistant City Manager Eric Schmidt. He manages community development, economic development, many of those resources. And then lastly, Assistant City Manager Steve Fancher. He actually manages all of our DES, Department of Environmental Services, parks, all of the water and sewer and roads, all of those things. So that's the structure. It allows for our city manager to really focus on leadership and a lot of key issues. And Nina Vetter, if you haven't met her yet, Firecracker, she's wanting to spend more time getting out and meeting with community members and organizations, so you'll see her more in the coming weeks and months.
So you consider the city manager and the deputy city manager and the what was
assistant city managers.
Okay, that's the leadership team. That would be the leadership team. So they all gather together once a week, once an hour, once whatever, to run the city. So where does the council fit in?
So the council fits in from a perspective of policy. So much of what you see in council meetings, we're approving large expenditures, specific policy adjustments, and also setting the vision, which you're going to start to see more of this. But the Imagine Gresham concept, those are the things that the council is stepping into, listening to the public, ensuring that we're taking much of what you're telling us back and beginning to translate that from the conceptual ideas and thoughts that community members have into action and delivering some of those things by way of policy to the city manager and the executive leadership team, or the leadership team there at the city, as was just referenced.
So for a long time, we've had a council work plan. Brilliant idea. It's a business plan that's going to facilitate direction of what the council is going to do, of what the city manager is going to do, but it also has goals. Generally speaking, in the past, it has goals. So the council work plan, by the way, this is a very unique idea that Gresham has. Not a lot of cities have a city work plan or council work plan. But the work plan that was published, there are 6 categories: COVID-19 response and recovery, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, parks and recreation, public safety, financial sustainability, and housing or houselessness. By the way, just for the record, is there apartmentsless too, and condominiumlessness too? And houseless, it comes in a variety of ways. I understand the concept, moving it to homeless, but that's the new word that we need to get used to. So let's talk briefly, if you could, talk briefly about maybe 3 of them. Of the 3, you've got your priorities. The council has put forth those 6. So could you, maybe 1 or 2, talk about you personally, that's something that's of interest in those 6 that are on the council work plan?
Excellent question. And since all 6 of them made the council work plan, they're all critically important. So it's not to say that if I don't reference it here, it doesn't have critical importance. They all have critical importance.
Thanks for clarifying that. I should have said that.
Oh, no, it's no problem at all. I just want to let you know, because ultimately I think you've got kind of a tiered approach that we need to take. Many times, as many of you are business owners, which I am, leaders in the community in various organizations. I think of my father's house and the work that Kathy has done there. So many of us are challenged just by the concept of a limited bandwidth, the limited opportunity to take on everything. And this is our way of looking at the vital few, which I'm encouraging our team at the city and our council to even pare them back a bit more, so that we can really be focused on the things that are really going to enhance our city. I'll start with COVID-19 response, because that is so critical right now. We've got a lot of things in motion. We've got to recover from this. And I think that's something that the council is very interested in. How do we leverage some of the COVID-19 ARPA dollars? It's the American Rescue Plan Act. In the city of Gresham, we got $25.3 million in that regard, and we can talk about that here in a minute.
I'll take $1 million. Now you only have 26.
Yeah, if we've got any questions in regards to that, where that's going. But that's critical. I mean, we need to make sure that we respond in a way that really lifts our city as we continue to move forward. We've got lots of things happening. You know, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, out of what we saw last summer and what we've seen in our history, it's a critical step that we need to take as a city. And so our diversity, equity, inclusion efforts, they historically were led by Dr. James Mason. Him and his team have finished their work, and now we are working on hiring a manager, a diversity, equity, inclusion manager, to assist us as we make this important transition. So super excited about that. And if you were to ask me, Travis, if there's one major challenge that you think the city has that's on that work plan, financial sustainability, there's no question. Financial sustainability, and hopefully we get an opportunity to expand more on that during this conversation, because that is critical.
We are not going to pass the plate to help him become financially
I was hoping we would. Hoping we would pass the plate.
Happen.
I mean, if I sing a song, would that improve the effort?
It would be worse. So
that's true. But our financial sustainability challenge is absolutely critical. You know, when I think about where we sit as a city, we're a city of 114,000 based on the most current census data, 2020. Hillsboro's at 106, and Beaverton is 99,000, just under 100,000. Why do I reference those two cities? If I could only do math. Why do I reference those two cities? It's because our general fund budget sits at $77 million for a city of 114,000. Beaverton sits at $100 million at a city of just under 100,000. The city of Hillsboro at 106,000 sits at 150 million of general fund budget opportunity. Why do I reference that? Because ultimately, out of a $77 million budget, $70 million goes to police and fire here in the city of Gresham. 90% of our budget goes to police and fire. Now, when you hear that, you may say, well, I mean, that's a good investment. It is a good investment, but that still puts us at an investment in our public safety that is significantly less than many of our regional sister cities. And so this is a challenge, you know, for us as we begin to think about imagining what Gresham could and should be. As business owners, as leaders, we know we have to make investments to where we want to go. And if we don't make those investments, we won't get there. And so when we have a budget where 90% of it in the general fund goes to police and fire, and it's still underinvesting in those two critical resources. We have roughly the same size fire department that we had 30 years ago. Our city was much smaller from a geographic area standpoint, and we were much smaller from a population standpoint. Folks, we've got to start investing in our wonderful city. We've got to make these investments to achieve, again, that imagined Gresham that we could and should be. I'm super excited and super optimistic about where we can go. But those are three items just off the work plan I just quickly wanted to touch base on.
that's great. One of the things that I also noticed in the work plan is that this year you didn't put timelines on what you were going to do. And I'm hoping that next year when you put the work plan together, because as business people, we like to see that there's movement. They like to see where there's goals and measurable goals. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the goals. They're very good and they're laudable, but it's nice to see that they're going to be measured and what can we expect? Not necessarily the priority, because as you said, they're all important, but a timeline of how we're going to get things done. That's my own personal. Okay, so how has being a business owner, how many employees do you have?
We have 6 folks.
That was a short answer. Okay, I'm just teasing. So how has being a business owner who employs people helped or frustrated you as an elected official?
It certainly has helped. I mean, the moment that you've got to be the person that signs the front of the check that, you know, we many times anecdotally say it gives you a different perspective. I mean, back when I was a W-2, and sometimes that's how we reference it, by no means is it derogatory in any nature, but when I was W-2, it was exciting every time payroll came along. When you're on the front of the check, it's like, oh, how fast does it come around every 2 weeks? Well, every 2 weeks. And so there's a sense of understanding and appreciation that I think you gain by the toils that you have as being a business owner. And I think those experiences actually enhance much of what you have to do in leadership, you know. And so I think it's absolutely helped. You know, I spent 9 years on the TriMet board, so I think that helped me from an area of patience building. We're Tri-County. And so under my constituency, there was 300,000 plus folks that had access to me, and I would need to carry their water, proverbially to the TriMet board. And so it's a massive organization, sometimes having a annual budget north of $2 billion. And so things move a little slowly there, an organization of that size, as which they should, and to some degree. And so I do have an appreciation for what it takes to truly listen to a community and then execute on things. But the city of Gresham, one of my favorite things about the city of Gresham is that, I always say it, and you'll hear me say it probably multiple times a day, we are large enough to matter and small enough to make it happen. So we're nimble. And in business, we sometimes don't think of government being nimble, but I can think of a couple of things in a couple of situations just recently, especially during COVID, where we've had the opportunity to show that nimbleness, and we will continue that effort.
That's a great answer. So you have different goals and priorities than maybe the council member that sits next to you and next to you. So you identified in the work plan the 3 areas in the work plan, but is there something else that's not maybe work plan or maybe more specific within the work plan that are top priorities to you to help Gresham become the vital, prosperous community that you want? I mean, you're speaking to a business audience, so I'm hoping that maybe something along that line, but maybe not.
Yeah,
a couple of vital community,
yeah,
some specific.
Well, that's a great question, and I appreciate the opportunity to just get my perspective on this. But and it may surprise many of you when I say one of my biggest passions is the poverty to prosperity journey. There is no direct correlation between race and crime. There isn't. It's been studied ad nauseum. There is no direct correlation. The correlation is poverty and crime. Not much crime in Lake Oswego, not much poverty in Lake Oswego. Poverty is the core of our biggest challenge. And here's the answer. Economic development is the solution. And if you listen to me at all, I'm a huge proponent of economic development. I'm going to put a different word in front of it, equitable economic development, because that's where the challenge has been. Economic development by nature is not bad. Free enterprise by nature is not bad. Capitalism isn't bad. Responsible capitalism, I put another adjective in front of that, responsible capitalism. But when I think about our opportunity to really impact our community in a positive way, it's the destruction of poverty by ensuring that we've got equitable opportunity and the equitable distribution of resource to cause that economic development to occur. Because that's the core. I mean, and it starts with education. It starts with job training. It starts with those critical things. I grew up in the inner city of Kansas City. I shouldn't say many, a number of years after Lynn was there. I know. I was like
102. Many. I've done
eons since Lynn was there. Wow. Thanks, Dad. And by then, one of the most dangerous streets in Kansas City, Kansas, is Quindaro. And I grew up about 5 blocks from there. And if it happens from a crime standpoint, I've seen it. I've witnessed it. For everything from drive-by shootings to drug deals, absolutely everything. And people ask, how did you make it out? How did you make it out? Education. My parents were just absolutely doggedly dedicated to ensuring that we had tremendous educational opportunities. And they worked 2 to 3 jobs to make that happen. And to this day, I thank them incessantly for that dedication, because out of their 4 children, all African American, 3 of us hold advanced degrees. 3 of us hold master's degrees, and 1 of us, actually out of the 3, holds a doctorate degree. To do that, 75% of your children growing up in that environment to have advanced degrees, and 1 of them having a doctorate. And 1 of them, I don't know if you know this, is the mayor of an incredible city in Oregon.
One of those best in the Pacific Northwest cities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There we go. So public safety is a really hot topic right now. Thank you, Steve, for the article that you've recently done in the Outlook. So public safety has been a hot topic for months for a whole bunch of reasons. What is the state of public safety in Gresham?
Public safety, wow. I mean, let's of course, public safety in this regard is primarily law enforcement. And as a majority, our council absolutely supports law enforcement. I support law enforcement wholeheartedly. And, this is probably going to be a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation, just because Here in the city, I believe in the last 15 to 20 years, we've brought 2 public safety levy opportunities to vote, and they both have failed. I was part of the initial effort. I was actually on the committee. And the big question I go to the community members was, hey, we need to pass this safety levy. We've got to ensure that we stay ahead of the game to ensure that we are effectively hiring, coaching, training our law enforcement folks. The response I got back was, oh, Travis, I generally feel safe. I just saw a police officer drive by. I said, this is not about now. It's about the future. If we don't stay ahead, it takes about 18 months. 18 months to get a new officer from someone who has an interest in law enforcement all the way through to where they can actually be out on the street by themselves. 18 months. And so I said, if we don't start now, we're going to be behind the curve. We're woefully behind the curve, folks. We have 127 spots, sworn officer spots. We're down 12 right now, so we're down 10%. Some of that's a normal piece of that, but I can tell you that there's probably about 5 to 7 of those that are just the current experience of what we're dealing with. And that 127 still causes us to be one of the lowest police per thousand in the entire region of similar-sized cities. That's challenging.
We should have about 156, just to put it in perspective.
So
we're at
we should be at
123,
156.
our size of city about 250. It's real close to that.
Yeah. So we should be substantially higher in the number of sworn police officers. Now, let me also say this. Public safety is also directly correlated with what I just shared moments ago. If we're not dealing with the underlying condition, we can never hire enough police officers because that's utilizing a remedy to the symptom. That would be like never working on the vaccine and only attacking COVID by buying ventilators. Yeah, we're going to save some lives, but if we move and we look at solving the underlying condition, we're going to be much better off in the medium to long term. This isn't a single-noted approach. We've got to look at the short term. We've got to look at making sure that we've got the right number of folks out on the street to keep our officers safe, to keep our community safe. Mental health of our team members out there in the field sometimes then leads to challenging situations where they get frustrated and they're stressed. We don't want that. We need to make sure that we're rightly resourced there. I'll wrap this up by saying that we are working on a number of different initiatives. We're working on a 3-pronged approach to bringing gun violence down, and it's going to focus on areas like community engagement and working with community-based organizations so we can have culturally specific solutions to some of the challenges that we're seeing. We're also going to be ensuring that our community engagement folks from a city standpoint is also working on youth to ensure, because some of this starts at the young, tender ages of teenagers. If we can work with them, then we can cease some of what may happen in the future. And then lastly, ensuring that our law enforcement is engaged and rightly resourced to be able to help us as community members to work on very different things that many times requires a police officer. So those are the 3 things that we're working on. We're doing stuff interagency-wise. We're going to be working with the city of Portland because we have to. I mean, we share the boundary on our western edge with the city of Portland, so we have to be being able to share information, being able to have a collaborative relationship. We're going to work with the FBI. We're working with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with the DA's office to have a full approach and response to what's going on right now. So it's full force. We're working hard, but I can't say it enough. We're also needing to ensure that we've got the right investments to have the right resources available.
Yeah, that investment is important. I'm going to go back to the work plan again. Movement on the work plan, it specifically states in there that Parks and Recreation levy is going to be looked into, or some sort of a funding tool that assures permanent funding for parks and recs. But there's no mention of a levy in public safety in the work plan. I too was involved in trying to get one of the 2 levies. It was the second levy. The second public safety levy lost 186, I think it was 186 votes. What that really means is that if 90 people would have voted the other way, it would have passed. So it was down to about 90 people. Very close, 4 years ago. A lot of work went into that. A vast improvement from the levy that initially was that you were on. So I guess, maybe it's about you and I. But anyway, But there's no mention of that. So is there hope for something like that? A levy? Is the council considering anything like that for more permanent funding? Because we are in a crunch, because we're compressed. We can't increase taxes. So is there any talk or movement? Is there something in the works that we don't know about that helps with what you just described, that's more on a permanent levy basis?
So everything is being considered. Absolutely.
Oh, okay, good.
I mean, so the
Great.
parks conversation is really, I think, one component. If it were a three-legged stool, the parks and recreation conversation is one of the legs. We're also looking at potentially from a fire perspective, and potentially a fire district or fire levy, having those conversations. But we're also talking about, what is it going to take for us to fund the additional law enforcement side of things and those types of levies. Now, the one thing you said that I'll actually probably give a different perspective, we're actually not fully compressed by any means here in the city of Gresham. We're not compressed. Portland sees much compression, and we're not going to go into a tax class here to talk about compression. Maybe there's a different opportunity here at the chamber we can do that, but there's a tax phenomenon here in the state of Oregon called compression, which limits the ability for us to actually have tax revenues. We're not there. I mean, we actually do have an opportunity to enhance our investment in our incredible city across all those opportunities. So it would be something that I'm confident it will be. There will be a package that will come to our incredible community members here in the near future, that they'll have an opportunity to kind of actually look at, to review, to give us feedback on as to what you want to see your city and how you want to see your city develop, how safe you want your city to be. So everybody will have an opportunity to lean into that. I always look at all the numbers and the data. Again, I already shared with you, Hillsborough, 150 million for a city of 106. I'm not saying we need to go to 150 million. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm giving you is the opportunity, if somebody comes to me and says, Travis, why can't we have what Hillsborough does? Because we're about 50% of their general fund, and we're about 8,000 people more. So they're investing in their community in ways that we're not.
All right, I'm going to ask you one more question, then get ready. It's going to be your turn. I'll come down there, and you'll get to ask your questions of the mayor, and he's promised to answer at least a dozen. We'll have...
no comment.
Yeah. What do you want to brag about? What are the treasures of Gresham? What do you want to brag about to us about Gresham?
I moved when I moved here from Kansas. Actually, at the time, I was living in Nebraska going to college, so I moved here technically from Nebraska, but I don't like to admit that. Anybody from Nebraska here? Anybody?
Nobody's going to admit
it.
Oh, Marty's
right
going to admit it. Okay.
Right here. Way to go. Wow.
Did you go to the same high school? No, okay.
Can we get the other Nebraskans out if we go under the cover of darkness? So, what was the question again?
Okay, it was, what do you want to brag about? You want to brag about not being from Nebraska.
Just joking.
Okay, we got that.
I'm just joking. What I want to brag about, the Gresham Mayor Chamber of Commerce.
There you go.
The best chamber in the entire state of Oregon. Next question.
No.
No, the city of Gresham is, oh God, it's just an incredible city. I think, I just think about the sense of community that we have. That's tremendous. There's just an incredible sense of community. But we have been, if I were to use kind of a boxing term, punching and above our weight class in many of the things that we've been doing. And that's some of the incredible success of just working and doing more with a little. And I think we need to do more with more. But I think about, what we've done with economic development, and recently, if you didn't know this, we have one of the only, there's a few of them, but one of the only diamond manufacturing growing facilities in the world. We have right here in Gresham, and yes, they do grow diamond. It's quite phenomenal. I can't explain it to you, but I went and I toured it, and he used phrases I didn't even know existed. But phenomenal. So what we're doing there in regards to bringing family wage jobs here to Gresham is tremendous. We sit at the base of Mount Hood on the shores of the Columbia River. We've got the Sandy River down the way. We got access again to Mount Hood, just our proximity to all of that and our ability to leverage it is phenomenal. And we've done a great job of that. And that's where, as I sit and I consider it and I think about it, I think the possibilities of what we can accomplish and what we can have as a city, I don't think it's second to none. I see us in the future having the opportunity to be in easily the top 10, medium-sized cities in America, because all the assets that we have as a community. Hence, as we look around this room and so many faces I recognize and I know, and that's really the foundation of the incredible community that we have. And I can brag about that all across the region.
I thought for sure you were going to brag about the chamber bronze statue on the corner of Main and 3rd that's Bless This Nest. It's the ducks, 7 ducks that are there. I thought for sure that was the treasure you were going to bring up.
Didn't I say that?
No, you didn't bring that up. Okay, I'm coming down. So who has a question? I'll go. Okay, Lynn, I'm coming over to you just now.
Make sure they're extremely difficult questions. None of that softball stuff.
I got a loud enough voice.
No, it's for the recording.
Okay, I'm sorry. So Mayor Stovall, we're both from Kansas City, Kansas, and I don't want to get in the details of my 25 years of Major League Baseball. It was Mayor Bemis that invited me out to Gresham, said rethink location. But just for a moment, you and I grew up in Kansas City, Kansas. Just explain, without detail, just what you saw, the vision of what sports on the Kansas City, Kansas side did for the Kansas City, Kansas community, if I may.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. I'll try to keep it brief. Ultimately, I grew up, I was born in Leavenworth, Kansas, raised in Kansas City, Kansas, and a lot of my family lived in Leavenworth. So we drove out to Leavenworth and past this farm field all the time. It was just all farm fields. Today, there stands just an incredible opportunity for development, jobs, many of those things. Folks to move from poverty to prosperity. It's called the Legends. And it started by vision. Someone had a vision to put a NASCAR track there. They have 2 races there a year. The immense development that has happened and occurred there is tremendous. Now they have minor league baseball team, stadium there. The Sporting Kansas City, their soccer team. I don't know if you guys know, but they won the MLS a couple years ago. They've got that there, and a tremendous amount of development. Cerner, I don't know if many of you know who Cerner is. They're big in healthcare, EMR, electronic medical records. One of their large headquarters is on that campus of what we call the Legends. And again, it's a tremendous destination opportunity when you go to Kansas City, Kansas specifically, which again was this farm field out in the middle of nowhere. And so it's those types of visions. I'm not saying we duplicate that, but it's those types of visions that really, I believe, spawn the opportunity. And I believe tourism is absolutely a traded sector industry, and sports being an anchor of some of that is, I think, tremendous. And we can leverage that here on the east side. We've got opportunities with mass transit, transportation systems, grids, all of those things. We can leverage some incredible stuff here.
Another question? Okay, wouldn't you know it'd be the furthest away.
Don't be bashful.
No, we need it on the recording. So, okay, so you're going to be a new dad again, huh?
No, this is just a business colleague of mine.
Oh my gosh, what the biggest faux pas that was. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Hi, I just, something you said resonated with me about the mental health wellness of police and first responders. And you said you're going to elevate programs to just help them out with that. I think that is paramount, and I just would like to have you shed a little more light on that.
Absolutely. I think many times we think about the folks that our finest work with. Those are the folks that are in the community that they impact. Jeff was impacted by the Portland Police, Gresham Police, and had an experience that was positive. And so to that end, we are looking at making sure that we've got resources. Because folks, they see some incredibly frustrating and horrible things on a daily basis. If you have an opportunity to sit down with any of folks that work in that space, it can be challenging to see what they see, go home at night, and just and take all of that off. And so we have to remember, that. But then also, one of the critical things is if you're in a situation where you're under-resourced, you think about being under-resourced in any of our tasks and in our businesses, what happens? Stress rises. So our stress goes up. And what's our stress response? Many times is to be irritated and frustrated. I can tell you, I don't want the person who, has a Glock 9 on their hip to be overstressed. I want them to come to a situation where they've got full capacity of where they are, who they are, and what they need to do in a situation. So we've got to ensure that we're giving them the resources, i.e. making sure that we're fully resourced and staffed, and then ensuring that we've got those types of resources from a perspective of mental health and any of those things that they need. And then we're also augmenting in our community kind of the right response. I think about what we did with homelessness and Kevin Dahlgren and Joe Walsh and their leadership under Eric Schmidt. We've been able to reduce about 90% of the homeless calls to the police department through that new team that we hired about 3 years ago now with the Kevin Dahlgren and making sure that we have Joe Walsh and then, of course, under leadership of Eric Schmidt. And so those types of things where we can ensure that we're putting the right resource to the right problem. Great question. Your name is? Matthew, and you're with who?
I'm with Guiding Light Home Inspection.
All right, excellent. Nice to meet you,
He's one of
Matthew.
our newer members, Guiding Light Home Inspection.
Excellent.
So there
Thanks
you go.
for coming out.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm Mayor Stovall, by the way, in case you didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have 2 questions over here. I'm expecting a question from over there. The owner of Shop Girl Consignment is next.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, I'm Thea Enos, and I really appreciated what you had to say about approaching the reduction in crime through the elimination of poverty, or least significant reduction of poverty. What is your favorite idea model for that?
Wonderful question. Thank you there. We are connected on what's that thing called Facebook, and we've actually shared a couple of kind of online messages, but never met in person. Thanks for coming out. It's education. It's absolutely education. I'm going to reference. I don't know if you know Riverdale School District, but of course, yeah. James Hughes, I know Riverdale. Riverdale School District. At the last election, they actually passed an operating levy. The community did an operating levy. Now, why is that so incredible? Because we generally pass bond levies, mostly capital bond levies for education. We did that here for all 3 school districts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you haven't seen the new facilities, this Saturday, Barlow High School is going to be for an open house, and then the next Saturday, Gresham High School is going to be open there. I see the heads nodding yes there. They're like, wow, the mayor stays tapped into what we've got going on, because I'm super excited and stoked about what we have going on there. We made investments. This community chose to make those investments, not just in Gresham Barlow, but Centennial and Reynolds, folks. Thank you, thank you, thank you for those investments. Back to Riverdale School District, operating levy. We generally don't pass operating levies at the local level. That usually comes out of our property taxes. So they augmented their entire budget with an operating levy. You want to talk about the achievement gap getting bigger and bigger and bigger because of opportunity. We need more equitable school funding. Absolutely. That's the foundation of where we need to go. We need more equitable school funding so that we have the opportunity to bring everybody the opportunities that incredible school districts like Riverdale and incredible school districts like Gresham Barlow can share. Similar types of resources. And then workforce training. Workforce training is paramount, and not just workforce training from a trades perspective, but workforce training all the way up through college and those types of things. And we're doing work in all those areas, absolutely. And again, it's my lived experience that informs that. Without the things that I just referenced, I wouldn't be here today. It's highly likely, folks, sadly enough, I would probably be dead or in prison if it had not been for my parents taking me out of the inner city schools, commuting me out to the suburbs every single day, about 45 minutes each direction. Tremendous dedication that they made. I'm here today because of that.
Parent responsibility. There you go. Do you have a question?
I do. Thank you. Mayor Stovall, thank you for being here today. My name is Teresa Peterson. I am with RE/MAX Equity Group, and I just moved to Gresham, actually this last April, from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And
double welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very impressed by the sense of community, as well as a lot of the opportunity that the community offers for growth. You mentioned economic development. I work in commercial real estate and thoroughly interested in how to help the city do that. But as business owners and entrepreneurs in general, what opportunities are there right now to collaborate with the city, in addition to being a part of the chamber, but to collaborate to promote what Gresham has to offer and help you achieve your economic development goals?
That's a great question. And my initial response is we don't have an active opportunity specifically in economic development. Historically, we had, and I actually sat on that group. It was an Economic Development Council for our Economic Development Team, or ECDEV, we'll shorten that. And so that's a great question. And it's something that, I'd love to make a reference or a recommendation to our team, i.e. our staff at the city, to reinvigorate that. And I think that's because and have it, ensuring that we've got a great diversity there so we can get all perspectives. So we can absolutely look at how do we encourage and enhance economic development. And many times, I also want to recommit ourselves to both sides of the economic development concept. Element 6, they're the diamond growing company. We were successful in recruiting them here. That's a critical part of our, and Subaru, the list goes on, that's a critical part of our economic development strategy. But if you look at some of these larger corporations and organizations, many times they're headquartered where their founders grew up. Bill Gates, headquartered where he grew up. Phil Knight, Nike's headquartered where he grew up. And so there has to be some type of dedication, to the startup and growth side. As a matter of fact, as you drive down 223rd, there's a company right there in the Gresham Vista Business Park just behind Weston called Imperial Brown. They're one of the largest manufacturers of insulated panels in the country, if not the world. And these are generally used in walk-in coolers, but they use these insulated panels all over. They're big. They have 4 different facilities all across the country. I think they're putting in a 5th in Oklahoma. Don't know why they're doing that. Don't tell any Oklahomans I said that. But here's the thing. They have thousands of employees. Coolest thing is, when I met with them, they said, hey, it's kind of crazy. We got our start, right across the street from City Hall. I was like, right across the street from City Hall? There's just a 2-bay garage there. And they smiled. They're like, yes, that's where we started. So now they're headquartered here. They've got, a ton of and great employees, some cool technology, and they started right here. So, when I think about commercial real estate, the opportunities that may exist there, many times, for young companies to get leases are sometimes challenging because it's financial based. What are ways that we can decrease that and lower the bar and the barrier to entry to get young companies into some of those places and spaces? Our garage to storefront program has been wildly successful, and we're looking at kind of redoing that here in the near future. And Council Primero was part of the council back then when they worked on that. Brilliant idea. Our enterprise zones have been very critical in the success in bringing new companies here. So many of those things are things that we're putting in place, but I'll take the recommendation back on kind of reinvigorating that kind of advisory group.
So we actually have time for 5 more questions, but only 2 more answers. So
Sweet.
That's just funny. It's supposed to be humorous. So do we have 2 more questions? Anybody else? Yes, Carol. Carol, the former CEO of the Gresham Area Chamber of Commerce. There you go.
And former city councilor.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. Because of COVID, City Hall has been closed to everybody. And one of the things that I always felt with City Hall was everybody was always welcome at any time, and I understand how the COVID affected all of that. But when are they going to open back up so the citizens can come back in and get engaged and attend meetings?
That's a great question. Of course, I'm sure everybody's wondering. We have looked at every possible scenario to ensure the safety of everybody, not just those who will be attending the meetings, but also our staff. And so, frankly, when we sit down, when we think about setting up even something like this, your staff goes through quite a bit of work. You went through quite a bit of work to get all of this set up. We're facing the same thing at the city, and just like everybody else, just like any other employer, we're dealing with some attrition based on folks saying, "Well, I got to work from home. I kind of like it. If you don't allow me to work from home, I'm going to find employment somewhere else." So we actually are dealing with the same type of challenges every other employer is, kind of a lower staff count, trying to bring that back up. I've already shared just the sheer number of folks that we have at the city. And back when you were a city councilor, the city hall is probably a bit more vibrant than it is today because we've had to cut. So we are limited, absolutely limited on our ability to bring our staff back faster just because of the things that I just shared. And we need that staff to be able to operate at the level that you're talking about without putting staff in jeopardy or our great community members and leaders in jeopardy. So I can tell you that we are continuing to look at every scenario that we possibly can to do so safely. If not, then we certainly, as which I'm sure you're not saying this, we certainly don't want to see any of our people, either community members or our team members, pass away from this incredibly horrible disease.
One last question. Okay. Diane McKeel, former Multnomah County Commissioner on the school board, Board of Trustees at Mount Hood Community College, business owner, a CEO of a chamber. Notice how I walked my way all the way over here.
Yeah.
Glad you did so much. So I could do that.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, Mayor, we've talked about our wonderful educational institutions that we have out here in in Gresham, and I would point out one more that's a very important educational institution that is in Gresham. It's a Gresham asset. It's a community college, but it is in Gresham. So that's not a question.
Was that a question or a statement? I'm
so let's talk about that.
I am super glad that you brought that up, Diane. Ultimately, when we talk about needs, Mount Hood Community College, literally, folks, is falling apart. The facility there is absolutely in disrepair. And I am so glad you brought that up because ultimately I am a community college product, and I'm a huge fan of community college. When I graduated from high school, I had no real thought that I would actually be able to go to college because we couldn't afford it. I was the youngest of four, and pretty much my parents had expended most of their resources already. And I got done with my senior year. And as I'm sitting there at the end of the summer, I'm working for UPS in Kansas City, and I thought, now what do? I got time. So I enrolled in the Kansas Community College for the grand sum of $600 for 16 credit hours for the entire year, for the entire semester. So I spent $1,200 my freshman year. I graduated that. I didn't graduate, but I finished that year with a 4.0. I was like, wow, I think I might be able to do this. Enrolled in my sophomore year, 4.0. And then I was like, whoa. Of course, I was all done at the community college level and then went on to a 4-year school, graduated summa cum laude. I'm not saying that to brag. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I mean, honestly. But so, Diane, thank you for referencing that because that is a critical opportunity. And Thea, you actually mentioned it earlier. I believe the community college is one of the foundational pieces that we have to support if we want to achieve the poverty to prosperity concept in our community. It is a critical foundation. If we don't, we won't get there because not everybody can afford to go to some of our amazing universities here in the state. And so we have to ensure that we've got this incredible asset that's right here in our community in Gresham. And we've got to leverage its incredible impact that we can have on our community. And they're the only tennis courts in East County that has lights, by the way. Just saying.
He would know. He's out there playing by himself. He wins every game.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Wasn't that great? Wasn't it good? Thank you. Thank you so much. I gave the mayor a list of questions to say, so what don't you want me to ask? Is there something that you want to talk about that I haven't included? And he says, I will answer anything from anybody. All your questions are great. That's accessibility. That's authenticity. That's willing as an elected person to even tackle the tough questions that might be difficult. So for that, I'm grateful. You've been very transparent today and fun. You're darn fun.
We'll
I like that. Before we conclude, I want to talk about Christmas. So I know.
I want a Tesla, by the way, for Christmas.
I know.
I mean,
you need to talk to Warner about that.
Tesla,
He's got the
anybody?
in-route. So I know that my dishwasher, I'll be happy to tell you the story about my dishwasher, but not online because it's a sad but funny story. I know my dishwasher is on a tanker someplace in the Pacific Ocean. I don't know when I'm going to get it. And that is also the case with a lot of supplies, a lot of products that were ordered a long time ago for you to purchase at Christmas time. So I'm going to challenge you right now. Don't worry. Just go to a local business and buy what they have. Buy what they have. I'm sorry if it's not on your grandson or granddaughter's list. Make it work somehow. But let's not worry about ordering online and hoping that it gets here. Go support them with what they have. It's not their fault that they have one product and they've made 3 lines of it to fill up the shelf. It's not their fault. And I go to Shop Girl Consignment. You probably won't go there to get anything for yourself, but you might go there to get something for somebody else. But there you go. But the point is, be open and start now. Be open and support them now, because you're going to have to be creative to fill up those stockings and to wrap those gifts up for whatever holiday you're celebrating coming up. So do it now, do it often, but stay within the parameters of the region if you can. Buy them subscriptions to the Outlook. I mean, there's all kinds of creative ideas that you could use, but do it now. Support them now if you can. I don't care if they're a chamber member or not. Let's keep our dollars local as much as we can. Tuition at Mount Hood Community College, a credit, give them a book. Whatever it is, let's plan ahead and do it now. All of them take Visa. Okay, all of them take Visa. So that's my preaching. I'm out, and I'll offline will tell you my really funny dishwasher story. All right, I want to thank again the Columbia Bank for their sponsorship, and Portland General Electric, the Boeing Company, Gresham Barlow School District, MetroEast Community Media. If you want to see this again and hear the great things that the mayor said, again, the rebroadcast, the reschedule is out on the counter. Thank you, Angela and Aaron, for the good work you do. And I want to also thank Persimmon for bailing me out of all those pumpkins that I've got sitting in there by coming up with the decorations last minute. So thank you once again. I can't tell you right now what the next Business and Leaders Luncheon topic is going to be, because I want you to read the newsletter. I'm keeping it a secret. So every Tuesday, open your newsletter to find out what's going to happen next month. Thank you, Mayor. Please keep doing what you're doing, as authentic as you are, as honest as you are. We're grateful for it, and be the business voice on the council, because we need to be heard, and you are one of the business voices on the council. So with that, stay healthy, wear your mask on the way out, enjoy the rest of your day, and make a profit. Not necessarily in that order. There you go. Bye,
and if
everyone.
you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and check out Gresham at 1,500 feet.
Oh,
Gresham
that's
at
right. I
1,500
forgot
feet.
about that. Gresham at 1,500
Super
feet.
exciting little thing that you could see there. Gresham at 1,500 feet. Just type in that. It's a kick to watch that video. So thank you.
Great. Okay, Mayor. Thank you.